Thank you very much for coming here to this session about the S4 and security. My name is Troels. This is my colleague.
Ernest, Gutierrez.
Good. We're going to address, the whole S4 security on a high level, right? So if we need to drill down to something, then please, come by and talk to us afterwards, and we can discuss that. This is just to give an overview of how we see the things here. So a little bit quick about, the risks, what we're going to talk about, the risks and the challenges, the governance model, how, Onapsis is building the whole, model for addressing this, a little about the gap, and then, of course, the platform itself. So, this is a statement that we meet a lot. We, of course, come from a security perspective. We think it's wrong. It's a little bit back to, is this something you also experience in your organizations? No? Okay. So it's a little bit back to in the old days when we were doing authorizations, right? And it says, yeah, we're doing authorizations. Where's the authorization team? Yeah, they come later. Then they say, we go live. Oh, we need authorizations. Yeah, but they're not tested. No, okay. We go live with Savol. It's fine. And then, you build up your authorization concept afterwards. Then you use the next 5 years to doing that. It's a little bit the same here, we assume. We believe that you have to address these things in the S4 project, or even better, before the S4 project. We'll come a little bit back to why we think that is super important, and why we also think it's actually saving a lot of time and also frustration. And we are here to ease people's life and work.
Actually, you were saying in the past that people was doing this thing about security, but I met one person 2 weeks ago in another conference that they were live on S4HANA in April, something like this. And now he was complaining, oh, now I'm changing my authorization. I asked, which authorization did you have? Savol.
But the good thing with Savol, it always works. You don't have authorization to Savol. That is really nice, right? Okay. So yeah, just to put a little emphasis on what we are saying is also something that we see in the market, right? So the problem is, why is security one of the number one roadblocker for transformation? That is because when these security questions pop up in the projects, right, on the transformation, then they have to be addressed, they have to answer them, and they cannot be answered with a simple yes or no. Sometimes you have to go into, discussions, investigations, what is the company's actually stand on this, and these takes time. And when these things, have to happen, then other things are delayed. That's why they're causing these delays. What we also see is that, it also costs some money, right? Because, because of the delays, and then, of course, the dependencies that haven't been mapped out in the project and such. So we see that by starting to address this before or initially in the projects, you're actually able to answer these questions and able to have time to answer these questions up front. Of course, not everything can be answered, but a lot of the things can be. Oh, I'm going to press this one. Okay, so what are the different challenges as we see it? We have the whole, downtime and costing. If we don't have the overall proper security in place, we look at the system configurations, the parameters, and all that have to be in place. And what we see, and in many cases, also when we will have an example of that later on, is that you might have this one more or less in place, right? But then you go to S4, it's actually a new system. You might even change, application management vendor and all that. They might have a different view on it, or might not even have a view on it. Then you're a little bit back to basics. The same also with the code. We just had a session with the code, right? That, the new code that needs to be developed, you need to ensure that you're not introducing new risk into the system, but you're often also migrating a lot of code over to the system. You also need to ensure that you at least minimize the risk that you are transferring over, right? And as we see, we also talked in the other session about that 2% of all custom code have critical findings. That means it actually is a lot. And the things by also addressing this in the S4 project is you have a pretty big and vigorous test cycle. And, why not take advantage of that, and get everything tested really thoroughly in the S4 project instead of having a new iteration where you have to, do your security and then you have to test again, which again is something that, the organization, the business really, really maybe not prefer.
And also usually the S4 have a good budget, right? So why don't use it to introduce security from the beginning, right? So that's important because a lot of customers that we are seeing, they have good budgets for S/4HANA and they didn't think about security, but they are able to find budget in that project to make it to clean the old code and also the new code before going to S4, right? Because at the end, they have limit downtime on the production systems. When you are ready, you are waiting so long for your S/4HANA, you are going live, and then it's a CISO coming. Okay, what is the security? Nobody thought about the security, and then that's the delay. That's the money that it's costing that we were talking before, right? So that's the overall that thinking on the security in advance, not wait until the end.
Yeah. So when it comes to roles, most of you have already done the segregation of duties. There's a little bit new introduction of S4 authorization objects. But actually, one of the major challenges and changes here to the roles is that SAP is now able to measure what the users are assigned to. And as you probably know, in your license contract, it is what the users are assigned to that actually is applicable for which user license that should have. That means that all customers need to address this issue and needs to probably chop off the existing roles that they have in order to meet this. And then on top of that, then you have the Fiori apps and how the whole integration with the Fiori apps is. And that's also important to ensure that you ensure that you have a simplicity between the Fiori and the backend roles. I don't know if you remember back when we introduced the SAP portals. You had the portal team, and then you had the ECC team. They were not talking together. The portal team was building the roles up in the portal and how the different views were and all that. That didn't really match the backend roles. So it was a mystery to actually figure out which backend roles and which portal roles were actually had to be combined in order to get people access. The same challenge comes here in the S4. You have the S4, you have the Fiori apps. You need to have that aligned with your backend roles as well. So, yeah. So how do we address these things? So we're not going to go deep here into solutions. There'll be a little bit of which solutions we have on the map, but by having a solution, what are the security parameters and what are the configurations, the secure configurations on the system at all times, right? And during a transition and a transformation, whatever, then these things changes all the time. So it's very, very difficult to keep up with this if you don't have a system to monitor this at all times. The same with the code, and we just discussed, there is, a cleanup. You're going to address probably most of your custom programs. You're going to throw out a lot of, unused code. That means also your code base is going to be smaller. Then you have the time and the effort to actually clean up the security while you're doing this. It's not such a big additional effort to also introduce the security aspects. As we discussed also, is that when you add security to the programs, it doesn't really affect the business processes, right? So it's more, you add the security add-ons in, and then you stop people for misusing these different holes in the security. We'll come a little bit back to the downtime and the cost, but with the governance model. But it's very important that we also know what are the boundaries of, what are the ambitions within the security, what are the KPIs, and who do we have to address it to, and who is actually responsible for these processes, right? And then again, remove the license risk. This is probably the biggest one. And this will, when we calculate that, by far the biggest risk for anybody, because the main risk here is that most of users will end up being professional. And that's a costly solution, right? Then, of course, the critical access, the SOD, it doesn't change that much with the SOD, as you know. They don't introduce that much new. So how we try to address this, we have this governance model or target operating model. You can have different names depending on, what they call it in the organization. But we have some vision and strategy. And of course, you don't want to make a vision for SAP security, but you want to align it and relate it to the current IT strategy or even the company strategy, right? So figuring out how do that relate to what is it you want to achieve, and how does SAP security play into that? It's not a big thing. It doesn't have to be 10, 15 pages, but it's still, think about it, how to relate. And then, by that, then we can set up the KPIs. What is it that we accept? Do we accept critical risks in our production system? We might do. We might have to, right? Because sometimes it takes some time to remove critical risk. But how long do we accept it? For 1 month, 2 months? What about what is our ambition for the code? How many of the risks do we accept? Which kind of risk? Only security and compliance risk needs to be removed, or do we also have the performance or the maintainability? Then of course the processes needs to be in place. We need to have people, doesn't necessarily need to have the in-depth understanding of SAP security, but they need to have the understanding of what is the impact, right? And how does that relate also to the risk? Then of course we need to have a framework on who is responsible for what. And then, and that's also why we're here. You cannot do this without technology. It's simply impossible. There's too many things to keep to have checks and balances on. So you need to have some technology in place in order to be able to be in control. So I don't know, as I think many of you have, how many of you talk about RISE with SAP? How many have gone on RISE with SAP? Not yet, no. Okay, but essentially you can say, RISE with SAP is very much, about, SAP needs to push this, in order to live up to the strategy they have, communicated to the stock market. But nevertheless, this is what they're pushing, right? So how does the division of labor between you and SAP actually works in a RISE context, right? So SAP provides the platform, right, and is responsible for the security of the platform. That also means that they manage things that are very technical, right? So they manage some of the technical super users. They also apply directly the hot news, the critical security nodes. Everything else is your responsibility. Then of course they monitor the platform. And then of course they have some compliance, right? But for your responsibility, you are still responsible for the code, the transport, for all the changes, because that's something you apply or your vendors apply. You have to manage all your users. That's also still your responsibility, the whole authorization concept. So you also have to decide yourself, when it is in a private cloud, which kind of the other security nodes you need to apply. And here it's important to say that even though critical, you have high and medium security nodes, those in combination can also be used to actually get administrator rights to the system if you use them in combination. So it is important also to apply these on a pretty frequent basis. Then of course SAP provides the technology and the functionality for the logging, but you yourself have to take action on the logging. And then of course you also are in compliance with you're responsible for the compliance of the data and such. So this is how it works. So you can see there's still quite some things that you as a customer needs to be aware of and are responsible for in this system. Of course, when it comes to a public cloud, then it's a different situation. But this actually is the same, if you go to BTP or to any of the other platforms, this is more or less, the same division of labor there is. Is there any comments to this? Have you seen this kind of division of labor? No. Okay. Then I'll give it over to you. Yeah, sorry. I just wanted to be nice. A little bit faster. I don't like this slide, that's why.
Anyway, so first of all, what's here? It's overall what's going on in the SAP on the application layers and everything. Who is taking care of what, right? So as of now, security, IT, and cybersecurity are in charge of the perimeter, network, and endpoint. So more probably, if we are talking about the RISE, right, that's what SAP will take care of, right? On the data, so SAP security teams need to get the control, the business controls on the data, but you need to be also taking care about the application. Nobody's taking care of the application, and what Troels was mentioning, that doing that without the technology, that's really really costly on resource, right? So you will need a lot of resource to go to check all the parameters. Also, it depends on the number of landscapes that you have, right? So that's what we are here on Onapsis and SAPSA to try to help you on the application, to secure the application. We are the endorse app from SAP, the only cybersecurity endorse app for SAP. And that's the important thing. That's what we are doing, securing the application. Again, some of you have been before in this room. We were talking about the code. Now we are expanding a little bit more about the rest of the things, right? So we talked before about the code, right? So on how we are planning, how we are doing the S4 transformation, but it's not only when we are planning and we are doing the S4 transformation, also to keep that maintaining, right? How do I maintain my system in a regular basis that it's secure all the time, right? So that's the loop that we are talking here. So first of all, what we said at the beginning, introduce the security at the beginning, right? Plan for the security before starting in the design phase of the S/4HANA migration. You need to introduce the security, right? And then obviously on the code we talked before, developers needs to scan the code. They need to be sure that the code has been scanned not only for obviously for security as we are doing, but also for performance, maintainability, and other topics, domains that we are doing. Help them with tools, with technology to auto-correct those. Whatever it's already there, just help the developers to correct those more faster. Analyze the transport when moving from development to test. Again, analyze the code when moving from the build phase to the test phase, right? And then the transport again when you are deploying in your production system, right? It's something that it's missing here, right? It's about the configuration. And I believe I have the feeling that the configuration need to be tackled, the security, even in all the development tests, in all the environments, right? Because if your team is testing without the proper parameters, then you need to ensure, then probably when you are introducing this security, probably you will have issues on the tests you have been doing, right? Like roles authorizations, everybody doing testing SAP and then introducing other type of authorizations. Code analysis, repeating the code in your production system, in your production environment. Obviously, everybody, if you most probably, you are already doing the application monitoring, check if the business processes are working properly, is the application it's having issues. Then configuration, ensure the configuration is not being changed, right? Enforcing the configuration. We also, that's the way, if you have a tool which is helping you to scan the system in a matter of minutes, that you are ensuring that all the time the system is kept, the configuration is at the same level, you are not getting issues later on that what happened, why this change happened, or when this change happened. User behavior analytics and threat alerting, right? So check what your users are doing. Check if there are possible threats in your landscape. So that's it's coming with the security audit logs, gateway logs, and all these message server logs. All these logs which are giving a lot of information and not usually being read, because reading those logs for a human being, it's tough. A lot of you may have your SOC team probably your SOC team is not able to read the SAP logs. Probably you have your CM, Splunk, your reader, and they are not able to read it. There's not many tools which are able to read SAP logs. So we are able to help and also to have the rules and to understand what to do with that. So we are able to read the logs and then alert you when something is happening. If a user is doing something abnormal, so this user usually is accessing as user 1, now it's accessing as user 1, that's no problem. But a user which is going usually to financial transaction, suddenly it's going to as user 1 to change a user. Why? So that's something that you need to monitor. Critical transactions. Who is accessing my critical transactions? Right. So that's what we are checking and we are validating and we are alerting the SOC and also the business, the system owner. So he is able to take action. I think it's not at the right stage. Also, if somebody is assigning new roles, new profiles, samples are new, probably for a matter of time. If somebody is opening the client, etc. So that's what we are trying to check. That's an Onapsis platform. So in this morning we talked about the control, the DevSecOps, talking about the securing the code, analyzing the code for security, obviously, for compliance, for data loss prevention. We are able to take that and help your developers to grow and to learn how to develop more secure. Assess is the vulnerability management. I mentioned checking for SAP missing nodes, checking for parameters. That's what we need to check during all the phases on the S/4HANA migration, right? So in development, in test, in production, before you go live, you are ensuring that all the vulnerabilities in the systems are covered, right? So then there is no downtime extra afterwards, or like I was explaining before, someone it's now we need to clean up all the samples from some key users that they need the sample. Now do it before. If not, that will cause impact, right? This guy that I was talking, now he's not able to do his work because they are removing some rights, then he needs to request again to get it back, etc. So that's the tough job that could be done during the test phases and all the previous phases. Defend, what I was telling just in the slide before, threat monitoring, monitor what's going on in your system, right? Also, we have, when I'm talking with customers, they're telling, yeah, I have the outdoor, and I have to enable the SAC security audit log. Yeah, but probably the audit is also telling you that you need to read this audit log, right? A lot of people, it's enabling the audit log, nobody's checking what's going on in there, right? We are helping to check what's going on in there, if there is any critical behavior or any critical threat alert that it's coming. Okay.
Yeah. So this is just to illustrate. This is from a customer we have that when we started up the project with implementing Onapsis, we of course had a lot of risk. Over time, we didn't have a project as such. We just did. In the normal daily task, we were able to remove the risks, right? So I guess many of you already have a lot of work that is related to security work. So now you just have a tool that helps you prioritize and identify which one is the most critical ones, and thereby doing it. So you can also say some of it takes time, the system has to be rebooted and restarted, other things have to be considered and all that. But then you can see out here, then over time here, then we go, almost down to zero, so we actually can keep it in check. And then again, things also go up sometimes, right? Because there is things that are coming in. We are not able to apply these things, immediately, even though we should. There are other considerations to do. If we had that a little bit more extrapolated, then we would be able to see that they applied S4, and then everything went up again because they changed their application provider, their basis provider, and those, of course, they had very much security governance in place. But it actually was when they started up, then all these parameters weren't set, and everything. But then they could apply that pretty fast afterwards. So it actually were able to identify all the risks they had when they went live with S4 by having the system in place. So you can say, just to wrap up here, where do you want to be in this security framework, right? New companies who doesn't have any tools, as we also talked about in the previous session, they are down here. They have low coverage and low effectiveness of their controls, simply because you cannot have an overview of the security if you doesn't have tools. Most customers in regulated industries, they want to be up where the security leaders are. Most customers in other areas, they want to be up here somewhere, right? We also asked this the other session, you know, is anybody wants to be anywhere else than up there? No. And I think this is also an ambition, right? To be up there, that also costs time and resources and money. So, yeah. So, you know, can say little security costs very little initially. Then when the things happen, then they can cost a lot, right? But then you also save some money. But what we try to save is better be safe than sorry, you know, that you also can sleep well at night, you know, and you can have this light bulb and then, you know, it doesn't turn yellow, you know, because you're calm, right? So, yeah, but that was our words. Please feel free to come in and we can talk more in detail about the, you know, the different aspects here and how we can help you address this. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And see, that's a nice, you can also contact us.
That's the best.
Yeah. We should have a picture of you also, Scott. No, I would like to have that. Just in the middle there. A little bit bigger.
Thank you very much. What kind of deployment model do you have? Is it a SaaS solution or is it
On premise, or we are working as a MSSP with First DigitalTrust.
Yeah.
So it's depending on what is your.
Yeah, so you can have it in your own landscape, or you can have it. We built what is a good thing about Onapsis is that it actually is. It's a little small own landscape itself. So when SAP goes down, you're not dependent on that it lies on the SAP, right? And you can have it either we can host it, and we built it up. We have expertise that, or you host it in your own setup.
Okay, yeah. So we are, I think, cloud before RISE.
Oh yeah.
So it's running for us on Azure actually.
Yeah.
So
when we do MSP as a managed service, then we also do it in Azure. We do it in the Frankfurt data center in Azure.
okay.
So they'll build a separate little landscape for the customer, you know, and then we connect that to their SAP landscape.
Okay.
And then you can buy it in different flavors, but you either buy the licenses, then you go to deploy yourself, or you buy a managed service where we tend to. You get the license, you get the hosting, and you also get some services around that we, you know, help you, you know, on a monthly basis, making reports, having meetings, you know, and it sounds pretty trivial, but it's actually a good thing to have these touch points, you know, gauge the people then look at, okay, no, we didn't solve that one. It's still open. Okay, maybe we should have to solve it this month. So,
Okay.
Cool.
Thank you.
Thank you.